Hi, I'm Lucy Marlow, a partner specialising in intellectual property here at Fox Williams. Today I'm going to provide you with an introduction to trademarks. I'll be covering everything from how to secure brand protection, why it's important, how your brand can be exploited to generate revenue, and how to bring an infringement claim. So, to begin, why are trademarks important? Typically, they're the most highly valued asset of a business. Think of the acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk. Twitter was valued at $44 billion US, and no doubt a key asset at play here was the brand. For so many businesses, their value lies in the brand. Think of Nike and the swoosh logo, for example. These brands require proper protection to prevent them from being copied. So, what do we mean by a trademark? A trademark is a sign, typically in the form of a logo or a name, which is capable of distinguishing the goods or services of one business from another. So, an example of a logo would be the Nike swoosh symbol, and an example of a name would be Nike itself. And there are many more unconventional types of trademarks, such as sounds. Think of the Intel sound, colours, Louis Vuitton and their red shoe sole. You have shape marks, so Coca-Cola and their bottle, and even smells. So the benefit of a trademark is that it gives you the exclusive right to use the mark for the goods and services that you've specified in your application. In the UK, registration lasts 10 years and can be renewed indefinitely. To be registered, the mark must meet certain requirements. It must be distinctive and it must function as a badge of origin. Marks that directly describe the kind, quality, or purpose of the goods or services are generally not distinctive. And the purpose here is to prevent common names for a product from becoming registered. Therefore, those names are not monopolised and they remain free to use. For example, delicious cakes would be too descriptive for a bakery. An example of something distinctive would be Apple for consumers, as the average consumer would not be confused between the food Apple and the Apple company that produces computers. That said, sometimes descriptive marks can achieve registration if you can show that you have used your mark extensively such that the mark has acquired distinctiveness. The next step is to see whether it meets the relative requirements for registration. That means before filing a trademark application, it's important to check that there are no identical or similar marks already on the register, as those holders of earlier rights could object to your application and prevent you from gaining the mark in question. Worst case, those earlier rights holders could bring a claim of trademark infringement and, if successful, could claim either an account of profits or damages. With an account of profit, you could be required to divest yourself of all of your net profits made by your infringing activities. They could also be entitled to injunctive relief, so they could stop you from using your mark and could require you to rebrand. If you've heavily invested in your brand and built up goodwill and reputation, this is not a good position to be in. So, next question is, do I need to register my mark? The short answer is no, as other unregistered rights may exist, but it is sensible. Your trademark grants you the monopoly right to stop others from using the mark. If you don't register your trademark, other traders could stop you registering and using your mark at a later date. So when to file? Well, the system operates on a first to file system. So priority rights go to whoever files their application first. And this creates a race to file first, making an earlier filing date important. You will receive a filing date and be able to rely upon this to prevent similar marks from making their way onto the register after you. So if using, you should file straight away. If you're about to launch, you should file before you launch the brand itself, but once you've chosen your preferred brand. So what should you do before registering? You should clear your mark in the country of interest and for any other territories that you're likely to expand into. International clearance is important to avoid a patchwork of rights and maintain brand continuity. Clearance searches are relatively fast to perform, and the outcome of the searches will be an indication of the risk of successfully achieving registration and whether your mark might be opposed. We can then tailor your trademark strategy to account for the risks presented. If low risks, then you can proceed with your application. A common misunderstanding is that by registering a name with Companies House means that you have the right to use the name in question, but that's not true. You need a trademark to secure such rights. Equally, holding a domain name which incorporates a particular brand does not mean that you have the right to use that brand. We previously mentioned that your brand may be protected even though trademark registration has not been sought, and this would take the form of an unregistered trademark. This is protected via an action of passing off. However, it's more difficult to prove. You have to show goodwill associated with the mark by virtue of your use, then that another trader has misrepresented their goods or services as being yours, or that you are connected in some way to them, or that you have endorsed their goods or services. The final element is that you have suffered or are likely to suffer damages. However, to bring a trademark infringement claim, there is a presumption that the mark in question is valid, and therefore you don't have to prove all of the above elements. This means that enforcing a trademark is far more straightforward and therefore less costly than seeking to enforce an unregistered trademark. Our IP team here at Fox Williams would be very happy to help you with securing your trademark protection. We could help you understand what brands you are using, what protection you already have, and where we may need to improve your current portfolio by securing trademarks both in the UK and internationally. Naturally, with all businesses, your brand will continuously evolve, so you may slightly change the nature of the marks that you're using, so your logos may change, or you may find that you expand the goods or services that you're using, and therefore your brand must continue to evolve with that, and that's where we can help. We can also help you with audits to ensure that your brand use is consistent with your trademark portfolio, to just protect your brands from becoming vulnerable to revocation proceedings in the future.